If you've been feeling stuck lately, like life is moving around you and not with you, this video is for you. I want you to know that you're not off track, but in fact, you might be exactly where you need to be. What if I told you that this stage that you're in is something like a cocoon phase and you're being molded and shaped into exactly who you need to be to get to where exactly you're trying to get to? In this video, we're going to go through the phases of life that you may be in, try to spot that, and actually let you know what it takes to get to the next phase so you no longer feel stuck. Let's get into it. So I want to start with my life story. And not exactly a whole life story, but just to let you know what phase I had been in for the longest. So there was a time in my mid-20s where I was working two jobs. I was a waiter at this restaurant called Ocean Prime. You guys may have heard of it. And also a front desk agent at a luxury hotel. And at the time, I was just trying to make as much money as I could. And actually, just got thrown off there. Blooper, we'll cut it out. But let's not, Let's mold ourselves. But at the time, I was just trying to make as much money as I could. And I remember I was out of college. I didn't know what career I really wanted. So in the meantime, it's like make money, figure out some side hustles. But during those times, I remember always checking Instagram and trying to see where I was stacking up to see if I was on track, if I was missing the boat. But I was not getting lost in the sauce of like these millionaire by 20 videos, thankfully. But a lot of people I knew were doing indeed just that. But there was a point where I realized that the process that I was in was really not going anywhere. And thankfully I was able to get to a point where I was no longer worried about other people's approval. I started to get really invested in reading psychology, books on metaphysics, and just diving deep into philosophy. And I would be literally taking notes from these books and writing my perspective of these chapters, and literally have notes on the entire book. And I place them in the back of the book to read them if I ever needed to. But in my head, I was like, how sick would it be that if these books changed my life, I could pass these books down to my kids, to my grandkids, and they could look back and say, like, this is a book that Uncle Miles, Uncle Salem decided to deem worthy and important to put on his bookshelf, and we could actually read what he thought was important with this book. And this is before I even started a YouTube channel. I thought it was cool to be able to distill some information, kind of put it in a more easily digestible way, and allow others to benefit from that. So yes, so this was the stage 2, they would say. But I'm going to start and go through these stages and let me know where you may have lied or where you're lying right now. So stage 1, I'm going to call it the echo phase. This is the phase where you're lost in imitation. I'm sure you guys can see me here. There's some sun setting, and let's see, one sec here. Might have to do a little backtrack and wrap back around. Don't want to waste too much sunlight. So phase 1 is the echo phase, where you're going to spend a lot of your time imitating and just trying to not rock the boat. You're trying to make sure to keep up the status quo with either your family, your friends. You're going to play it safe. And the work of this phase is to know that you're never going to fully fully get everyone's approval, not even your own siblings, your parents, your spouse. I'd hope you'd get past this stage 1 before you got into a real long-term relationship or marriage, because you haven't even began to explore life. This leads into stage 2, which is the wilderness. In this phase, you're basically struck with wanderlust. You have a urge to travel, to see all these new cities, to hook up and see what type of woman you're into, or females, what kind of guys you're into, and you're probably balancing different jobs, you're hopping different cities, but this is a messy time, but a necessary time, because you're collecting data during this time and learning what lights you up. The danger is getting addicted to all this novelty that you're experiencing, though. So you want to really dive deep in this phase. I think it's important, excuse my French, but they say like everyone should go through a little hoe phase, but I'm not here to encourage anyone to do that exactly, but this phase could kind of be considered as a phase where you're just trying to really just wring out all the juices in life and see what you're capable of. You're operating on your edge at this point of the phase. And eventually you're going to get to a point of clarity, of realizing what it is that lights you up, what it is that you're good at, and where you should stop. Like I said, you don't want to get lost in the sauce of this wilderness phase. So we're going to switch hands and switch some mindsets here. 1 second. So this is going to lead to the phase 3, which is the forging. This stage 3 is what you're trying to figure out. What am I willing to burn for? You start to realize, like, in order to get somewhere, you're going to have to go through some trials and tribulations, but you start to figure out, like, what am I willing to do to get to where I'm trying to get to? You kind of become like a martyr in your own life, and who you love. This is where you find your relationships too. You might have kids, you might have a family that you're willing to go to bat for and burn for. You stop chasing attention. Everyone's opinion really doesn't hold too much weight on your life anymore. You're starting to cultivate your presence, and this is where the power is built. Time and energy, you realize those are real currencies. And in this phase, you're starting to get to the final stage, which is the summit, stage 4. And this is where you start to realize that your time on earth is finite. You're mortal. This is what they call adopting a sense of memento mori, the Greeks used to call it, which is realizing that you're mortal. There'd be these Greek emperors that would hire slaves to remind them that they too are mortal, even if they had just won a huge battle or conquered another city or whatever it was. They had to be reminded that they're mortal and their time's going to come as well. So with this perspective, it could be a little dark, but what it really does is allows you to start planting seeds and start to figure out who you want to mentor. What is the legacy that you're going to leave behind? And you start releasing what no longer serves you. This is a great phase to be in. And I think if people could actually have mentors that are in this stage, the stage 4, they could get past the other stages a lot more quickly than if they went the trial and error route. I remember my shift was when I started getting obsessed with reading and just diving into myself, and I spent a lot of time in the phase 2. I think a lot of us, it's necessary to spend time in the wilderness phase and really try to get to know what lights you up. But this led me to a book which I consider one of my favorite books. I'll probably read once every year just to keep this perspective and reminder that life is also conspiring in your favor at all times, no matter what is happening. And it's the book The Alchemist. I encourage everyone to read this book. And there's a part in this book where there's a side story. This is aside from the whole story of the main book. And it's a short story of a boy who goes on a journey to find the secret of happiness. And he comes across this sage at his palace. And the sage tells the boy, instead of giving him the secret of happiness right away, he actually gives the boy a spoon and drops 2 drops of oil on the spoon and tells him to walk around his palace and come back without dropping any oils, and come back and I'll tell you the secret of happiness. The boy comes back purely focused on not dropping any oils. And the sage says, "Did you see my garden? Did you see the art? Did you see the beauty of the palace?" And the boy did not. He was lost and making sure he didn't spill any of the oils. So the sage then sends him back out. And the boy then makes a point to see the garden, the beauty of the palace, the art. He comes back, but he forgot to focus on the oil. The sage then tells him, the secret of life is to enjoy all the marvels of the world, but to not forget the oils on your spoon. And this is basically making sure that you're aware that life is a balance, but to keep your vision tight and still figure out how to enjoy the beauties of life. You don't want to be too lopsided and enjoying life too much that you forget your duties and what's important. But you also don't want to get lost in the duties and your finances of things and not ever look up. There's a lot of people that are successful, but they're workaholics. They don't know how to turn off and unplug. They don't know how to enjoy their spouse, their family, and they may have given their family a good life financially, but their kids have probably never connected with their parents. You don't want to live a life like that either. So I hope everyone watching was able to maybe look back on the different stages, and I'll recount those stages real quick, which is first one being the echo phase. There's stage 2, the wilderness. There's stage 3, which is the forging, and stage 4, the summit. I want you to comment which stage you think you are in and what you need to do to get to that next stage. And if you feel stuck, I am also doing one-on-one consultations. So if you feel like you're hitting a ceiling or a wall, feel free to go in the description, book a one-on-one call with me. And in the meantime, subscribe to the newsletter, Weekly XP. I release a newsletter every week. It's been every Sunday, but it's now going to be every Monday because I feel like Sunday's a day of rest, and I know I'm not really looking at my email on that day, so I don't expect everyone else to be doing the same. So on Monday is the new release date for Weekly XP. And in the Weekly XP, it's long form content, my writing. I basically go deeper on these topics, and I distill the newsletter into a video, and I kind of just freestyle these videos. But on the newsletter, I also will be starting to drop weekly, bi-weekly playlists that really light me up. I love music, so this is also a way for you guys to see different facets of myself and interest, and try to get on that vibe and level up with weekly XP. So if you made it this far, congrats, you leveled up. And just know that a belief may be comforting, but only through true experiences it become liberating. Until next time, it's your boy Salem. I'm out.